Turkey, from Lithuania. If others want to be from Canada, Sweden, England, sorry, UK, both, Netherlands, sorry, Switzerland, my eyesight's going, Switzerland, Gibraltar, we will fit everybody in. Can I hand over to Erwin?
Thank you, John. The Nobel laureate and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel, who regretted very much that he was unable to be here today, reflecting recently on the global upsurge in contemporary anti-Semitism, uncharacteristically shared his deep anguish and apprehension about what has been referred to here as the explosion or pandemic of anti-Semitism. He said, and I quote, "May I share with you the feeling of urgency, if not emergency, that we believe anti-Semitism represents and calls for. I must confess to you," he said, "I have not felt the way I feel now since 1945. I feel there are reasons for us to be concerned, even afraid. Now is the time to mobilize the efforts of all humanity." And so the question, what are the reasons that Elie Wiesel was speaking of for us to be concerned? What is the reason for this sense of urgency, if not emergency, and anguish that he feels? These could include, as have been referenced in this conference, the dramatic increase in attacks on Jews and Jewish religious, cultural, and communal institutions. It could be the growing and global incidence of academic, university, and related boycotts whose effect, if not its intent, is the singling out of Israel and Jews for selective opprobrium and exclusion. It could be the widespread and rapid transmissions and circulation of anti-Semitic hate and incitement by satellite TV, radio, and internet. These and other dynamics and concerns that we have discussed. But I suspect that there are three manifestations of this pandemic of anti-Semitism that account for Elie Wiesel's apprehension and anguish. What might be said, his deep sense of pain and alarm, as expressed in that statement and as he has conveyed to myself and others. First, there is the state-sanctioned incitement to genocide, whose epicenter is Ahmadinejad's Iran. The toxic convergence of the advocacy of the most horrific of crimes, namely genocide, the crime whose name we should even shudder to mention, embedded in the oldest and most virulent of hatreds, anti-Semitism, denying the Nazi Holocaust while inciting to a new Middle Eastern one. Let there be no mistake about it, and this is a panel here on legal remedies, that Ahmadinejad's Iran is repeatedly violating the prohibition against incitement in the Geneva Convention. It has already committed the crime of incitement in the Genocide Convention in violation of it. State parties, and that would include, I suspect, every country represented by parliamentarians here, state parties under the Genocide Convention are obliged, it's not a policy option, are obliged to prevent incitement, to hold Iran to account. Yet, the state-sanctioned genocidal incitement continues. It continues to manifest itself amidst what might be called a culture of impunity. As I speak, not one state party has undertaken the modest initiative, I would say responsibility, under Article 8 of the Genocide Convention, to simply refer the matter to the United Nations Security Council or any UN body for deliberation and discussion, such that by our own equivocation, hesitation, rationalization, and the like, we inadvertently sanitize, if not encourage, this evil. But as we have said, silence or indifference is not an option. Equivocation is not a policy option. There is, simply put, an international legal obligation to act. As the former United Nations Commissioner on Human Rights, Louise Arbour, put it, the responsibility to prevent genocide, to prevent incitement to genocide, is a jus cogens obligation, an overriding legal obligation. And so I have joined together with a group of legal scholars, genocide experts, survivors of the killing fields in Darfur and Rwanda and the like, to release a petition on the 60th anniversary of the Genocide Convention on December 9th, 2008, which largely went unacknowledged, which was organized around two parts. The first part was to document, and this is the most authoritative and comprehensive evidentiary representation of this state-sanctioned incitement to genocide, all culled from the original Farsi language. These are not newspaper reports. These are the leaders of Iran in their own words. The second part of the petition identifies the legal remedies, indeed I would say the obligatory legal remedies that state parties are obliged to take. We launched, therefore, on that December 9th, an international advocacy campaign to bring Ahmadinejad's Iran to account. And I want to close on this point to invite member parliamentarians to join us in this effort to not only sound the alarm here, but to act. I might add, and I'll close on this point, that this petition has been endorsed by, as I mentioned, Louise Arbour, by Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel, and by leading legal scholars and genocide experts around the world, and some people in this room as well. The second reason for concern, as Elie would convey it if he were here, is the laundering, as he has put it, of anti-Semitism under the cover of the struggle against racism, where Durban became metaphor and message for that, and where Israel at this point stands accused of the twin evils of the 20th and 21st century, both apartheid and Nazism, which can serve and have been held out as serving as prologue and justification for the dismantling of the Jewish state. Again, I need not emphasize, but I will, I am not speaking about critiques, indeed rigorous critiques, of Israeli policy and practice. I'm speaking of a collective indictment of the state and people as a whole of such a nature and character that invite its dismantling. In this context, the most painful development has been recently, and as Elie Wiesel described it, and as he put it, that no event has been more inflammatory than the misuse of Holocaust comparisons to describe the conflict in Gaza, in what might be called a dual demonizing indictment. On the one hand, Jews are blamed for perpetrating a Holocaust on the Palestinians, as in the appalling statement of a diplomat who, in order to protect her, I'll leave her name unmentioned, who said, and I quote, "The grandchildren of Holocaust survivors from World War II are doing to the Palestinians